Okay. We're going to get going. We're going to start with the flag salute. Okay, this meeting is being held in accordance with New Jersey statute requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the press and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that if you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form outlining the procedures for obtaining building permits and mercantile licenses. At the conclusion of your case tonight, please approach the board administrator to sign the provided information sheet. Yeah. Roll call.
Tom Collins,
Here.
Richard Patterson,
Here.
Michael Richmond,
Here.
Stephen Giesecke,
Here.
Michael Ruffey, Margaret Gubernalti,
Here.
John Pitts,
Here.
Jim Galantino,
Here.
Andrew Campbell,
Here.
Craig Palmisano.
Okay, since we already did the announcements, mixing it up a little bit. Let's do approval of minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of resolutions. Okay, number 26, 2024, Robert and Lisa Miller. Number 27, 2024, Michael and Mandy Dorfman. Number 28, 2024, Daniel Bierig. And number 29, 2024, Janet McCarron.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to do our first case. Robert and Paula Magagoli, is that correct? Class? Malaga? Okay. 207 North Granville Avenue, Block 408, Lot 7, located in the S24 zoning district, seeking C variance relief for minimum side yard setback, maximum size of an accessory structure, and potentially others in order to construct a new single-family home. Current on taxes, water, and sewer payments, proof of advertising, and notifications provided, represented by Eric Goldstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Malagoli. Very interesting house design. This is one we've been working on for a while. Malagoli's, he's a builder, don't necessarily love the 2.5-story over parking, what we would call the cookie-cutter Margate house. Want to do something a little different, to really make the best use of the space, while at the same time trying to keep everything in line with the development on Granville Avenue on this block. So Mr. McLeese is going to testify to the design of the house in a minute. Will walk us through the actual plans themselves, but I'm sure everybody had a chance to look at everything. The lot's fairly sizable, but the house really is not. And we concur with Roger's report. When Roger sent the report out a little earlier, the one thing that did kind of jump out, the height of the accessory structure being 14.43. Mr. and Mrs. Malagoli looked at the report. They're dropping it down to 13.5. So we are amending the application before we even get started to make that a little less than a foot lower than proposed. But what's interesting to note on this one is how much smaller this house is than could otherwise be built under Margate's code. You don't see too many straight-up 2-story houses when you could go 2.5 over parking. The actual height of the structure, 18 feet over base flood, not really taking advantage of all the quirks that some of the architects designed to get more house out of the lot, but instead trying to keep everything subtle. Mr. Malagoli, they're going to live in the house, and he's building it for both himself and his family and his wife, but the goal here is to make a little more storage, a little more use of the property, because it is a larger lot, 60 feet wide, where only 40 is required in the zone, and it's about 1,500 bigger than the required square footage. So, having given that preamble, I'm going to have Bill walk through the plans and just talk about the design of the property, how we got to this point, and go through the variances one by one. So, Leo, if you don't mind having...
Yeah, I'm going to get Mr. McLaren sworn in, and I'll defer to him whether he wants to go through his report now or later. But Mr. McLaren, if you can raise your right hand, you swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
And
They can continue.
okay, and then we'll get Mr. McLeese, just your name and address for the record, please.
William C. McLeese. The firm name is William McLeese Architecture. The address is 5 MacArthur Boulevard in Summers Point, New Jersey.
Okay, and please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do?
I know you're a registered architect in New Jersey,
Yes.
and you've been before this board several times. We'll accept his qualifications?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so, Bill, you heard what we've been discussing, and of course, you work very closely with Mr. and Mrs. Malagoli about the design of the house. So walk us through how you wound up with this design and the variances you need, and then we'll talk about the positive and negative criteria.
Sure. As Eric's kind of already touched on, it was really important to the Malagolis that the house not lose that connection to the ground plane when you're elevated a whole full story up and you have the garage below. The porch on the front was very important to them. And they're really trying to recreate, or I guess reintroduce the modern version of the house that they've had there that they've owned for 40 plus years. So I commend them because they took a very sensitive, careful approach to the home design. It satisfies their needs without building to every single bulk requirement. However, there are some unique features that they wanted with the property that you see here before you this evening. The house itself, 2 stories, as Eric pointed out, approximately 18 feet above the floodplain requirement. As you measure height, there are 2 parking spaces in the driveway, which is oriented towards the east or towards Ventnor Avenue. And we have the garage structure or shed structure, depending upon how you want to look at it, at the rear corner. That structure itself is smaller than what would be permitted for a detached garage, but larger than what is permitted for a shed. Mr. Malagoli worked kind of tirelessly to fit what he needed in it without putting anything more than he needed in it. And the benefit of that is that the building ends up being smaller and doesn't block his neighbor's window for their bedroom, which kind of looks towards the driveway. So being sensitive to the neighbor's needs, the building grows out to the side a little bit, obviously, and hence it's larger than the maximum permitted for a shed. And as we talked about the roof already, originally in the application is proposed at 14.43. I think that was kind of a function of matching roof slopes, but we were okay with lowering that down to 13.5. Incorporating this structure, which is actually going to be used for storage, and we'll be parking a golf cart in or a low-speed vehicle in, requires the house to be slid across the site a little bit, obviously. And so that's what you're seeing with the rear yard, or I'm sorry, the side yard requirement or the side yard relief that we're looking for. So along the western edge of the property, we're proposing a 5-foot setback, which is approximately 2.5 feet more than what's currently existing today. Not that that's the standard we should be measuring against, but that does give you a sense of how the building is going to sit on the site relative to the building that's there today. So we're meeting a 5-foot setback, and we're meeting the aggregate setbacks for side yard. It's just not the minimum required 10-foot for this lot, given the size of the lots. By all other measures, I think it's a unique house, and it's refreshing to be able to work on something that really seems to fit into that neighborhood that's there now, but not just the neighborhood that's there now, but is pretty consistent with the development of Margate historically, what used to be there. And I think that's kind of a nice opportunity to be involved with.
We think this is maybe, I'm sorry, Craig.
No, you go ahead.
No, we think this is maybe the new model that, for the longest time, everyone wanted to go 2.5 stories over parking, and then that became the house that the popular would call it, the Margate cookie cutter house. And it works, but this is a little bit different because you've got more, as Bill said, attachment from the house to the street. You've got the porch, which is closer to the street. You're not looking straight up. And more importantly, you have an applicant here who's done what most applicants don't. And I think it's important to review Roger's chart. You're not maxed out on front yard to the deck. You're not maxed out on front yard to the house. You are getting, on the right side, the setback is significant. It's much more than is required. The combined meets, it's really what we're looking at, is the left side setback. But again, it's under on height, under on coverage, over on landscape coverage. But because we're trying to coordinate the accessory structure, which again, as Bill testified to, is smaller than a detached garage would be, but bigger than a shed would be. This is a little bit of a quirk in your ordinance, which, may or may not change in the future, but this is kind of the model we think goes forward as something people can look at and say, I can get a lot of house without just maxing everything out. So the problem is it still needs some variances, and Bill and I are going to walk through them in a second, but Craig had a question before we get to that, so.
My question is, you're topping out at 40 feet, right, in the ridge?
Yes.
That's maximum, okay. And in the garage or the shed, what's the attic space in there? 3 feet or something like that? Or is there going to be an attic in there?
It'll be a little bit of an attic, yeah.
Yeah, small attic, 3
Yeah.
feet or something like that for
Correct.
storage. And I think that's all I had. Is there going to be a vaulted ceiling in the second floor? No.
We talked about it, but
That's what I was wondering, because
you got to get air conditioning in somewhere, so.
so there's an attic above the second floor bedroom.
Oh, Bob, just wait. Mr. Manis will swear you in. We'll get some testimony in a second, but we'll get.
How much attic space and height is there on that?
There's a bit, it's not a full story by any means.
It's like 7 feet or something up there, maybe a height?
Yeah, if that, yeah.
I have a quick question, maybe for Roger. If this 40-foot lots are allowable in this area, right? That's 25?
Minimum lot width is 40 feet.
40 feet, right. So if it was a 40-foot lot, what would the side yard setback requirement be?
5 feet.
5 feet. Okay.
And combined would be 15.
Right.
Any other questions before we go over positive and negative? All right. So Bill, obviously you designed the house, and we've been discussing this with Malagolis and also with Roger for quite a bit. So we do need minimum side yard on the left, where presently it's 2.8. So when the new house is built, it'll be further from that setback. But the board knows it's a clean slate, so we can't really use that as an argument. But it is a betterment when the new house is built. It's just not something the board can consider. So based upon the 5-foot setback on that side, do you see any negatives associated with that design that you put together with Malagolis request?
I don't. I think that, obviously, a 40-foot lot, you can have a 5-foot setback, so it's not unique to the district. It's an improvement over what's there. Again, I know that we can't use that as a standard, but it's an improvement. It's not reducing light, air, and open space for the neighbor, certainly to the beach side because they're on the larger setback side, but not to the westerly neighbor either because they're currently dealing with a setback that's much closer.
To the extent there could be some negatives associated with that, with the benefits as you just described greatly outweigh the negatives.
I would certainly think so, yes. I think with the benefit of, it's a more desirous visual environment, obviously, new construction, it is going to be flood compliant, so from that perspective, it benefits the health, safety, and welfare of the neighbors. Yes, I do see it as overridingly beneficial.
And then with regard to variances 2 and 3 in Roger's report, which are the accessory structure area and height, based upon your testimony and the fact that we're attempting to kind of keep the scale of the neighborhood in line, is there any negative that you could see associated with the variances that the board saw fit to grant?
I do not, no.
And if there were such a negative, would the positive that you've described greatly outweigh that negative?
Absolutely.
And then finally, with regard to the mechanical equipment, it's a little less than 5 feet based upon Roger's report. Just go over that real quickly with the board and explain where that's going to wind up.
Sure. So if I can go to the floor plans, right now we're looking at the mechanical equipment in the back. Sitting here, it's kind of pretty close to the building, so we're kind of pulling it in as tight as we can get it, but obviously there's practical constraints with the equipment that we have to work with, so.
based upon your testimony and the design of the house, would there be any negative associated with that?
No.
To the extent that there was, positives outweighed.
Yes.
Members of the board, Mr. Malgoli is here to answer questions. You can certainly have him sworn in if the board has anything they'd like to hear from him or from his wife, but I'll leave that to all of you if that's something that you'd like to hear. He started to talk just for a minute before, but I don't wanna-
Does he have a golf course? An existing elect?
Question, come on up.
Well, they can answer, I don't care. It's just-
You got to be sworn in, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Mr. Malagoli, just give us your name and your address for the record, please. I'll get you sworn in.
Robert Malagoli, 207 North Granville.
And please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
It's my intention to buy one. I don't have a place to put it right now, and
All right.
that was the intent.
Well, then the garage is still serving the purpose of getting a car off the street, even though it's a golf cart. It might be smaller for a garage, but
And you're going to build this house yourself, correct?
Yeah, I'm a builder.
You're not going to put any habitable space over an area that's approved only for storage, correct?
Only for storage.
That's a big concern of the board, so we're leaving the record saying that nothing
No.
that's now listed as storage will be used to live.
That garage will be a storage
Okay.
facility.
People have said that before and have done it. It's not you, it's others, so it's going to be
No,
clear.
that's what it's intended for.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, or? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a
Paula,
question.
you want to come up, or are you good?
I don't know, Roger,
it just turned it off.
sorry. Thank you. What makes it an accessory structure rather than a garage? What are the specifics?
We've had the interpretation that a garage has to fit a motor vehicle having a legal space of 9 by 18.
Thank you.
Sure.
Roger, could you, we talked about this before the meeting. What, if they made the garage, if they made it a garage, which is 9 by 18, then they would exceed their lot coverage. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You understand? John?
I don't understand.
Yeah. They would exceed their lot coverage. So,
Because of the pavers leading up to the garage?
Yes.
yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, we would rest, and we certainly would answer more questions if the board has them, or members of the public, but I think we've established the positive and negative. We really think this design is unique. We think this will ultimately lead others to want to do something. Someone has to do it first, take a new piece of property and build something that hasn't been done similarly. So we think that Bill's design, which is great, and we have the homeowner who's going to build his own house, so he has every incentive to make it as nice as possible. This maybe is the wave of the future for some, not for everybody, but we think that it's got some weight to go forward here.
Quality over quantity.
Anyone else from the board? Okay, we're going to open it up to the public. Anyone from the public like to speak? Okay, public portion's closed.
So I have a question. There's no way that condenser can be moved to the back of the house?
We can, I mean, we're happy to explore the alternatives. We'll see what we can do with it. Do you have any?
I don't have an objection.
Okay. We can move
They're-
to the back.
It's a VRF system, the condensers are very small, you don't hear them. They're literally about 12 inches wide.
Right.
It wouldn't be a burden at all. Put it on the side, from the back.
I mean, my crystal ball tells me that somebody's going to see it, and they're going to want it on their house, and they're going to point this out. I mean, if it can be moved, I'd rather avoid that type of variance if we could.
Is that okay with you, Bob?
I
Okay,
just wouldn't do it.
we'll take it off. We'll make it comply.
You're eliminating a
Yeah, that's always, I know.
Right.
All right, we'll eliminate, we'll make sure it complies. Wherever you have to move it, Bob, we'll figure that out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so I think we're good, Mr. Chairman. It's up to.
So, in essence, let me just recap. I never introduced my report into the record, but real quick. Yeah, the testimony pretty much hit it. It's a straightforward application. Basically, you have an S25 home on an S40 lot. It's a handsome home. I think fits in well. As Eric says, it could be the model. I don't see it that way, but
Well, I don't really believe that, but I think that in general, it would be nice, but no one's going to do that.
But one of the aspects, with a 60-foot wide lot, you have a functional driveway. Pushing the house to the one side doesn't matter to me too much because the 5-foot setback is common in the S25 zones. One issues that we had early on before we allowed the parking below was narrow driveways aren't functional. This will be used. And the garage or shed, and again, I think this warrants a clarification on the ordinance in regard to sheds and garages and mini garages, whatever you want to call it. Maybe there's room for another type of definition in there, but in essence, they have down to 3 or 2 variances, or 3 variances, minimum side yard setback, as we discussed, and the proofs were put on, as well as accessory structure for the area and the height. I have no objection to any of these requests. I think they fit with the property. And again, if this was a 35-foot wide lot, possibly that could be an objection, but that's all I have to say. I think they put the proofs on in regard to the C2 criteria, which is required in this application.
But do they comply with the height of the shed?
No, they still need a variance for that.
Okay.
But it would,
13.5 or whatever still.
it would comply for a garage, but not for an accessory building. And you're going to fully comply with the landscape requirements and
Yes.
no pear trees, no crepe myrtles?
Correct.
All right, perfect.
Hmm?
Yes.
Yeah, it did.
We're done. All right. Someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll summarize it. Someone will need to make a motion, then we'll need a second. It's a C variance application. There's 3 variances. The side yard setback on the left side, 5 feet they're at, intends the requirement. And then for the accessory shed, accessory structure, whatever we're calling it, 80 square feet's permitted, and they're at 213 square feet. And then the height, they're allowed 9 feet, and they're going to have 13 and a half feet. As far as the condenser, they're going to move that around back. I'll note that. That'll eliminate that variance. And in terms of conditions, we'll just note anything in Mr. McLaren's report unless otherwise addressed, and then the standard conditions that we put in every resolution. Any representations made will be complied with, and to the extent any outside approvals are required, they're subject to those. Approval runs with the land.
I'll make that motion.
A second. Were you done, Leo?
Yep, I was done.
Where you going, Tom?
Tom Collins?
You know, normally I would not be in favor of giving a side yard variance for a 60-foot lot in Margate. But again, every lot has to stand on its own, and I think the effort that the owners put in with the architect, you came up with a really, really nice plan. And I think it's going to be, it doesn't really fit a hardship variance on the C1, but on the C2, it really does strike home, and I think it does has so many more positives to the neighborhood than negatives, as you so nicely stated. I usually don't agree with that, but and I think you're going to do very well with this, and just don't get 2 golf carts. One's enough. I vote in favor.
Richard Patterson?
Well, even though it's technically not a garage, it's serving the purpose of a garage because it might not fit a car, but it fits a golf cart takes the same spot on the street. I agree with Tom. I mean, when I first looked at this, a 60-foot with a request for a side yard setback, I laughed until I looked at the plan and saw how modest of a house it was. It's not 6 bedrooms with 6 bathrooms. It's really a joy to look at a house like this going in. It reminds me of a house on 300 block of Huntington that was rehabbed, but they made it a 2-story close to the ground. And I think it's a great project, and I approve.
Michael Richmond?
Yeah, I think the house really does fit in with the neighborhood. I know, we still have that parking under the houses, and we're going to continue to do that, but this just fits in so much better that the 5-foot setback, which, like we said, if it was a 40-foot lot, would be doable, and the area in the back, I don't really have a problem with that. I'm going to vote yes.
Stephen Giesecke.
Yeah, I think it's a well-designed house, and I would like to see more houses like this. And I think it's an improvement, and I think it's a benefit to the city. So I approve.
Michael Ruffey.
Yeah, I agree with the others about that side yard setback. I think the other requests are minimal. I like how you're attempting to keep with the original character of Margate Homes, and you know whether others follow that example, I guess, remains to be seen. But I don't have any problems with it. I agree with the others, and I'll approve it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Margaret Gubernalty.
Yes, I agree with the other members. I agree with Mr. Richmond, or Chairman, I should say, about the 5-foot setback. The S25 zone is common. Positives certainly outweigh the negatives. It's smaller than what could be built there. It fits in the neighborhood really well. It's a nice design, and I approve the application.
Thank you.
John Pitts.
It's on now. Yeah, as others have said, it's a great design. This is the sort of house we want to see in Margate going forward. The accessory structure versus garage, yeah, maybe it's something we need to take a look at. For me, this is certainly a garage. I think you could have done something with the driveway to still meet the coverage requirements. Maybe strips on the parking spot in the front, but I think everything is suitable and it's a good design, so I approve.
Jim Galantino.
I agree with the other members. It does have the parking underneath where all the houses you see now have 2 cars parking, 2 driveways in front of the house, underneath the house. And I do agree with Tom. The variance does go with a specific piece of property, and I think the applicant stated the facts correctly, and I approve in that application.
Craig Palmisano.
What I like about this house is 3 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms in this house, and the driveway can accommodate cars easily. That's big. I really appreciate that. I like a 2-story home, and I hope there are more like it, and I approve. I agree with the other board members. I approve.
The application is approved with 9 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you all.
Okay. Our next case is Sam and Phyllis Watt, 9707B Pacific Avenue, Block 131, Lot 16.2, located in the multifamily zoning district, seeking C variance relief for the 3rd floor deck design and potentially others in order to convert an existing roof over the 2nd floor deck into a 3rd floor deck. Current on taxes, water, and sewer payments, proof of advertising, and notifications provided. Represented by Christopher Balanson.
We only have that one microphone right now for them.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Chris Balanson. I represent Sam and Phyllis Watt with respect to their application this evening for their property on Pacific Avenue for a, Roger references it as a roof deck. I'll say 3rd floor deck. We can figure that out as we go forward. What we have here is property on Pacific Avenue that fronts Pacific Avenue. It's unusual in that it's a 2-level property with a unit on the 1st floor, forward, the Pacific Avenue part of the 1st floor, and the Watts have the rear unit and the upstairs. Coming out of the upstairs of their unit is the roof, as you see, as you all saw the property, is the roof of the 1st floor unit. And that's a big roof that extends all the way to the parking by Pacific Avenue. This section right here.
Chris, if you want to just bring that over there, there's no other microphone right now. It's the only one we have.
roof to the first floor unit. When the Watts moved in and purchased the place in 2021, the whole place was a disaster. But that structure here actually held standing water. So Sam, at the request of his neighbor, after he said something to her, because it was like standing green water, it would stand over periods of time, re-fiberglassed that deck, that roof, and the railing that was there, this first 10 feet of it, he ran all the way around. He did not get a permit for that, did not realize he needed a permit. He was of the opinion that he was repairing it, wasn't for use, it's not for use, they don't use it. They're not allowed, in this unit here, are not allowed to use this. They're allowed to use 10 feet right here, that's it. That's where the railing was, he just wrapped it around, and it's not used because it's right over her unit. And the footsteps and the noise and commotion in the condominium documents precludes them from using it. And that was in 21. In 23, in April of 23, Sam built this roof that you see now, intending for it to be a deck, and he did that without a permit. He was stopped by Mr. Vada and Roger, and what you see there now is where it was stopped. He hasn't done anything since then, but it was fiberglass, as opposed to leaving the raw wood there. It was fiberglassed by the fiberglass company that he had hired when he started to do the deck, and they were away for a month, and they showed up and did it. John Vada saw it, called them and said, "You're not allowed to do that." He spoke to Vada, and Vada said, "If you're just fiberglass, then fine, but don't do anything else," and that's where we are today. In the interim, Sam went to Mr. McLaren, and after he was stopped with the structure as you see it, with the posts and the stairs and just a platform, and Roger said, it can't be a deck, it's not permitted, it can be a roof. It can be a roof out of your slider right here from your kitchen. So we got zoning approval for it to be a roof, you got a permit for it to be a roof. And he said, if you want to try to make it a deck, go get a variance. And that's where we are today. There's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of information that may or may not be true, but that's essentially what happened. I don't think I left anything out. But when Sam was told to stop, he stopped. But for the fiberglassing, like I said, he had hired the fiberglassers when he thought it was okay to do this project, and it wasn't, and never called them off. And they showed up and did it, and were allowed to finish for Mr. Vada. So what we're here to ask for today is, and Sam will he'll tell you the story is, he was involved, he did it. Phyllis is here as well. Look, if anybody's seen the building, they've made it beautiful. It's their year-round residence. Phyllis was born and raised here. And they had, from here, as part of the deck that they're allowed to use, they had a view of the ocean until the 6-unit condominium project went up in front of it, which killed it. Off of this platform here, they can now see the ocean, like, if they look that way, but it captures a small view of the ocean for them. And this deck, as I point to, the roof deck, is limited to the 10 feet approximately that they're permitted to have down here. Actually, when they moved in, there was a platform, kind of an elevated. Roger notes that there was no deck here initially. Sam said there was. There wasn't. It was actually elevated off of this roof here because it was so wet. It was just a platform that was built there. So it's in the same configuration. He just brought it up. If the board tonight says, no, we don't want it to be a deck, he removes the stairs, he removes the posts, and we're done. In my mind, in my opinion, that would kind of be a waste at a relatively modest property close to the beach that actually has a view of the ocean but lost it and can recapture a little bit of that. Mr. McLaren calls it a roof deck because it comes out and it extends above the second floor, which is the living space of the property. There is a third floor with a ceiling height in excess of 7 feet, which makes it habitable. It's not used. It's used for storage. The people who lived there previously used it for their grandkids and stuff. But it's not, It's, right now, it's not used as a habitable floor, but technically, in terms of the ceiling height, it is habitable. Now, a rooftop deck is described in the ordinance as one that is above the highest floor of the structure. That is not above the highest floor. This is the highest floor, that comes out of the highest floor. But the access, there's no access to it, it's just a window. That's why the stairs are on the outside. And the stairs on the outside are actually permitted. It's not, they used to not be permitted, they're permitted. So in my mind, when I look at the project, it seems to me it would be a third floor deck that doesn't comply with Margate's restrictions in terms of the design of a third floor deck. Because it doesn't have an enclosure, half of an enclosure and knee walls, et cetera. But at this location, in relationship to the neighbors and the way this property is configured, and every property is, you guys said previously, every property stands on its own. This doesn't bother anybody. In fact, it makes the property look a whole lot nicer. It gives this long extension, long structural extension here, so it kind of breaks it up, going up, adds some nice, the white adds some nice color to it, and just makes the property, Pacific Avenue, not look like just a long, skinny trailer. It gives it some feeling of, and appearance as a home. And Phyllis will tell you, and she'll show you some pictures. From inside to outside, the neighbors will tell you the same. From inside to outside, they've just done a beautiful job on the property. And I'm not saying that what he did in terms of not getting a permit was right. It's never right. It's wrong. He'll tell you that. He now recognized it. I told him, I said, Sam, you have no defense for this. You have to go in there and you have to say, they screwed up. I almost said fucked up. That you screwed up. And he recognizes that, and to the extent that helps in your decision-making process, that would be wonderful. Because as Leo will suggest to you, and I don't have a lot of cases where I come in after the fact for approval, but you're supposed to look at this as if it wasn't there, as if he was coming in for variance to allow that deck from scratch, not as if it was built already. And I think, as often as we are together, that this as a deck wouldn't bother you guys at all at that location in relationship to the neighbors and what you design into a third floor deck to preclude it from having any impact on any of the neighbors in terms of safety, in terms of voyeurism, in terms of whatever it may be. That doesn't have any of those impacts at all. And if nothing else, it just makes the property look nice. And I'll follow whatever you guys say is the right way. If it's a rooftop deck, so be it. I'll ask for that variance. I don't think that it is, because that can be habitable. But it just says a pull-down stair, and to design this and build this, to install a stair, it doesn't make financial sense. It screws up the whole building. If anybody has any questions, Sam's going to be here to answer those questions about the story and how it progressed. He'll answer them. And I hope you don't hold what he did against him. They are nice people. It's a nice place. It'll look better with this deck. It'll serve them well, and the neighbors don't have a problem with it. I have some neighbors here already. I have another neighbor. I don't intend. I think the board should hear this. I don't want it to be evidence, but in terms of just the aesthetic enhancement to the property, to give us some background. I'm not asking to take it as weight. I'm just asking just for some background, if that's okay, Mr. Richmond? Mm-hmm. Just for the aesthetics. And I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to offer it into evidence. The person's name is Gary Meltzer. I'm writing the letter because I'm unable to attend the zoning board meeting on in August of 24. I resided at 9703 Pacific during the summer months for more than 25 years. My property and 9705 are sister properties to 9707, units A and B. We share a courtyard and driveway. Our homes create a unique villa-like feel. Until recently, 9707 was under several eyesores in the neighborhood. The previous owners had made little to no general improvements, nor had they kept up with basic maintenance since they purchased the property in the 80s. Sam and Phyllis changed all that. They beautified their property, which was one of the first dominoes in the overall improvement of not only our block, but the neighboring blocks as well. There has always been rooftop decks in this area since I've lived here. This deck does not invade privacy, nor does it pose any safety concerns to me or my family. It enhances the property and is actually lower than several other decks in the neighborhood. I, like many other part-time residents, come down to the shore to enjoy the beach and the sun. A sun deck seems logical. As the owner of the lower floor unit with entertaining space above, The elevated deck also makes logical sense to not create impacts on the neighbor below. I'm sure you've all heard the saying, good fences make good neighbors. Well, in this case, good decks make better neighbors. It enhances the look of the property as well as our shared courtyard. They have made beautiful changes to the property by updating an older, existing property instead of knocking it down. We believe this maintains the charm of Margate that residents like myself have enjoyed for decades. That's from Mr. Meltzer. And with that, I'm not going to offer that, but with that, Sam, you want to come up, please, and come and be sworn?
Chris, is that the downstairs neighbor or the one next door?
Next door,
Towards Atlantic City?
towards Langston. No, to the left. To the left.
No, I think he said we can't go out on this.
Sam, you'll have to be sworn in.
Mr. Watt, just give us your name and address for the record, please.
Sam Watt, 9707B Pacific Avenue, Margate, New Jersey.
And please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Sam,
Thanks.
you guys purchased this property in 2021
Yes.
and moved in at that time?
Yes.
And you prepared some notes for this evening because I told the board that I can't tell your story. You've got to tell it. You've got to stand in front of me. You got to tell it.
Okay.
So take your time. I know you're nervous. Go ahead.
So like Mr. Bellinson said, we had moved in, and shortly after moving in, meeting with our neighbors, we had noticed after it rained that their roof was literally like a fishbowl.
When you say our neighbor, you mean the lady downstairs?
Yeah, the lady, our downstairs neighbor.
It's condominium, right? So there's condominium documents and rules and regulations?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, from the original docs. So when we moved in there was literally seagulls that would fly on it, fly, land, and we joked it was like a giant bird bath, for them. So she had asked if I could, repair her roof and make it so. Their concern was that the weight of the water, and possibly ice or snow or something like that, that their whole world could come crashing in on them. So the water and the retention of that water was a big concern. They had asked me to fix it. They had paid me to do that, and in order to do that, and I guess part of the problem why it was never done before, is our platform deck that was out of the back of our house.
That's right out the slider?
Right out the
Can I reference a small 10-foot
Yes.
platform?
So that platform deck actually sat above the bottom of our sliders. Like anyone that's going out to a porch or a deck, usually you would go and you would take a step down. This deck, this platform that was there before, it was 2 steps up. So not only was it inhibiting, it was maybe about 18 inches or so off of their roof to the top of the deck, but that was putting it 8 to 12 inches above our doors. So you actually had to step up from inside of our house and take 2 steps up to get onto this platform. That in turn had caused damage, inside of our home where the sliding doors were. When it would rain.
And what you're talking about is right here out your sliders, right?
Yes.
I drew a line there?
Yeah, where you drew the line
And
there.
that came up above the threshold of your slider?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So also doing this, when we had moved in the property, and Chris had used the word trailer, we had used the word, double wide, that the home aesthetically, with that condo in front, and we had moved from Linwood, we had moved from a house. Downsizing, into a condo was something that was a little scary for us. Phyllis was from here. She said, you're going to love it over here. It's going to be great. But moving from a house and into condos, one of her big things has always been, she didn't want like a Philadelphia row home. She didn't want where we're one color house and then you have another color house right next to it. She wanted everything uniform. She wanted everything to be equal and aesthetically pleasing. That house in front of us with the design of the roof, that flat roof, it literally, from the curb appeal, it had none. You know, it was like a double wide that was in there. So the railing that was on our platform, talking with the neighbors, we said it would look aesthetically much better. We agreed we would not be using that
Just say your
space.
name, you mean the lady downstairs.
Yes, the lady downstairs, you know, who's,
And the railing was, it just encompassed the 10-foot or so that you guys are allowed to use under the condominium documents. right?
correct, where the platform was.
Right, this area here was not used as a deck, can't be used as a deck, under the condominium rules and regulations. Why?
It's over her living space, it's over her kitchen, living room, and the footsteps, you know.
Chris?
Why did you wrap the railing all the way around to the front and not limit it to the area that you were allowed to use?
Because back here, you couldn't really see it from the street. Moving it forward and moving to the sides now took the property, instead of looking like a box in front of it, now you bring that railing around it, and it made 1,000% difference in aesthetics.
You don't have any furniture out there, you don't have any fire pit, you don't have any,
Nothing out there, no.
and you guys don't use it?
We don't, no, we don't. And, you know, I have, you know, she polices that, you know,
Lady downstairs?
yes.
You guys get along fine?
Yes,
And she knows you're here?
yes.
Go ahead, let's talk now about why we're here.
You know, so,
That was in 21, right?
that was in 21.
Let's move to 23.
Okay, so then late March, early of April of '23, as a weekend warrior, I was out there over a couple weekends, started building the deck. I had framed, you know, the deck that's there now existing. Had framed the deck, put the plywood up, put the staircase up, had the posts up. During,
And no permit?
no permit.
Why?
It kind of kept on getting put on the back burner. You know, I was 100% wrong. My wife will probably tell you, you know, she's like, you have to go and get a permit. You have to go and do this. You have to, you know, do this. We were having a baby shower for my daughter, you know, in a couple months afterward in May. That was occupying a lot of our time. And it's not an excuse, but it just kept on getting put on the back burner. Paperwork, computer work, that's not and never has been my strength, but just getting the time to come down, and it was always something I figured, okay, I had a, you know, deck there. I figured I can get this permit whenever. You know, that the deck, the inspections, everything's gonna be, you know, visible, it's gonna be elevated, anything that anyone would have to see, it's, for lack of a better word, I was thinking, okay, I'll do it before it's done, and all will be okay. And I was completely wrong, assuming that. I'm sorry, it was never my intent, it was never, you know, it was in the front of the house. It wasn't like this was in the back of my house, and I was building barriers and trying to hide what we were doing. And this wasn't over like a single weekend. I had built this over 2 to 3 weekends.
What happened?
Officer Vada had stopped, told us to stop building, that we had to obtain a permit. Okay? That was on a Thursday or Friday. I can't remember exactly, but that was in early April of that '23. If it wasn't the next day, because it was a Thursday or Friday, by that following Monday, I went down to the city. They were under construction at the time. You were in the gymnasium. They didn't even have an office at the time. Met with the lady, got the paperwork, put in my application for the permit.
That was a permit for what?
For a deck. About a week later, she, I believe, called me. I don't think it was an email. I believe she had called me and said, before you get a permit, you need zoning. And I was like, okay, zoning, okay, I'll have to get zoning. I thought I only needed a permit. To get a permit, you need a zoning. And I'm really, at the same time, okay, this is another piece of paper. This is another, form I have to fill out. This is another, fee or whatever it might be. But again, I'm thinking it's a formality. It's something that you fill out the paperwork and all will be.
Did you apply for zoning approval?
I applied, yes, I filled that out. On that zoning, I had put to remove and replace an existing, I think I even called it a rooftop deck.
And when you say remove and replace, what were you referring to?
My platform deck that was there. Because I was, in my thinking, was it's the same size. I wasn't shifting it. I wasn't moving it. And when I'm thinking of zoning, I'm thinking of setbacks. I'm thinking of things like that. Height, like I said, I know our neighbors, I had, heard that third floor decks were permitted. In my ignorance, I'm thinking best case, this would be a second floor deck because of how much lower my home is compared to our neighbors. That when you look at them from the street, it looks like that deck is 4 stories high, okay? And I'm thinking, okay, this is 2, and we're allowed to go 3. Again, I was completely wrong in my assumption and everything else, and, I apologize for that.
Stop, just no less, you got stop, and anything else. What happened with the zoning approval application?
So, Mr. McLaren, he educated me of what a rooftop deck is, and that this would be considered a rooftop deck. That, unless I had gone for a variance, that he would not be able to approve this as a deck. And I had asked him, how about if we do a roof? And he says, yes, you can make it a roof, remove the post, remove the staircase. I had asked or questioned, wow, well, the railings are really, that's like the aesthetic that would tie everything in. Without the railings, it's kind of going to look like a carport, just, slapped up there. The railings, if we don't have access to it, it couldn't be a deck. And he just had said, no railings, no staircase, roof only.
Did you get a permit for the roof?
Yes, we got zoning approval.
For a roof and a permit for a roof.
Yes, yeah, that was in beginning of May. We had gotten zoning approval, and then we had gotten by the end of May, we had gotten a permit to, as a roof deck.
Now, what happened, and you stopped, didn't do anything else?
No.
What happened
In
with
the-
the fireplace?
Okay, so in this time of back and forth, when I had first built this, I had contacted, and I'm framing it, I had contacted Ocean City Fiberglass. I had hired them before the Officer Vada had stopped me. We had a conversation, we came to an agreement, and I had hired them. Probably a month later, after this project had been stopped, I was in Cleveland visiting my son with my wife, and I got a call from the Ocean City Fiberglass guys. That's when I immediately called Officer Vada. I didn't even know the guys were showing up. On this thing, they came out of the blue, and I didn't even think about. There were so many other things coming on of unhiring them. I didn't even think about that. But I wasn't in town when.
What happened, Mr. Vada?
So he said, I'd asked him, and he said he had given me permission that we can fiberglass the deck to not allow, or fiberglass the roof, fiberglass the structure, to not allow, because that was built into the roof, to not allow any water to come into our second floor. So Officer Vada had given us permission to, or given Ocean City Fiberglass permission to fiberglass the roof.
And other than that, no work was done on it since the day you stopped?
Yes.
And then what did you decide to do?
So then we get the permit. In the first week we had the permit, I'd finished off the underside of the roof. I had installed the vinyl soffit. I put the trim boards around, and then by that time it was summertime. We were still, I hadn't never touched the post, never touched the stairs. Wanted just to get the underside finished off. We'd taken the whole entire summer, and that's where it was left. Living through the summer, enjoying the space underneath there, because prior to this, we didn't even go upstairs as much as you might think. We were just us living there, we stayed mostly downstairs. Having this space up top.
Second floor.
On the second floor, and having that outdoor space, now I understood of what my wife meant by "you're gonna love it here," and going out, hearing the ocean, being able, the breezes and everything else, and sitting underneath there, daytime, nighttime.
Now, before this happened, could you see the ocean from your slider?
Prior to the condos, yes. After the condos, no. We lost. That was lost.
So you made a decision over the summer to ask for the variance?
After sitting with the summer, my wife basically made the decision. She made a decision for me that this is something we should move forward with.
And here we are.
And here we are today.
This was last year, right? 2023?
Yes.
Okay.
Summer 2023, yes.
Can I just get some clarification on a couple things, or do you want me to wait till?
No, go ahead, please.
So, because it's hard to see from the street, and I'm visual versus these plans. So the person below you is in a one-story unit, correct?
Yes.
And you're in a two-story unit.
Yes.
So that big deck that looks like a deck is not usable?
No. That's the one. Let's say 1/3 of it. 1/3 of it would be usable.
And that's yours?
Yes.
That's yours, that you use, on the second floor?
As you come out your slider, you're allowed to use X number of feet forward.
Okay.
Yes.
Because from the street, it looks like it's a whole huge...
Correct.
They're allowed to use about 10 feet coming out the slider. The rest of it, it's on
Is her roof.
On the railing is her
So
roof.
where you built the staircase is on your
Portion.
On
part
Mark
of the
portion.
condo, and it was approved by the condominium?
Yes.
Okay with, on the condo docs and so on and
Yes.
so forth? Okay, because it's confusing from the...
Yeah, bringing the railing around would give you that
So
appearance.
he does have an area that's outside, an outside porch right now that you use?
Basically the same as the roof deck they just built. It's
Right,
the
and
same-
how big is the deck up there that you're proposing?
The width of the house,
How deep is it?
12 feet.
And the last question, the dormer. I have two pictures in front of me. One, the older one, before it was there, before the structure was put up, shows no dormer, and now I see a dormer. What's in that dormer area?
That
When was the dormer put there?
Right.
the dormer in that part of the roof was there before we bought the place.
Okay. So this is just
What's up there?
old picture.
Storage space, our HVAC, is up in there.
And that's above the deck that you're building?
Correct.
All right.
And the ceiling height in there is in excess of 7 feet.
85 inches.
Is that yours or the neighbors?
Ours.
The top floor
Yes.
windows? Yours?
What's the access to that? How do you get to that storage area?
Pull downstairs.
Now it's attic, pull downstairs.
All right, Sam, thank you. Bob?
I got a question. So, you know how you considered the railing all the way around
Yes.
for aesthetics? That you're only allowed to use 10 feet of that.
First 10 to 12 feet, right.
Whatever. So is there a separation between that? Is there like another railing?
There's planters. There's a row of planters. Planters, plants. Nothing structural. On that second, the roof above the Longwood, that's right.
And there's the 6x6 posts that are holding up that roof. That's like the visual that when we have our, my son just came in today. He's visiting for the weekend. And he's a 25-year-old kid. And he's been in our house 30 times. We will have to remind him, you can't go past these 6x6 posts. When we have friends and anyone over, everyone wants to, oh, here I go. No, that's not ours. So we police that to, again, just common courtesy, respect, to our neighbor downstairs.
So there's no use of that front 2/3?
Zero.
And there's no use on the top deck yet?
Right now, no.
Thanks. Bob?
All right, Mr. Reynolds, I'll get you sworn in. Just your name and business address, please.
Robert D. Reynolds Jr., registered architect, New Jersey, 109 Iona Avenue, Linwood, New Jersey.
And please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you'll give tonight will be the truth?
So help me God. Yes.
Okay. And I know you've been here recently. We'll accept it. Okay.
Bob, you did not design this deck roof, did you?
No.
You've been to the property and inspected it, though?
Yes,
And it is as described, as Mr. Watt described it?
yes, part of the drawings indicate the existing conditions when I arrived in January, February, and documented these existing
What I want
conditions.
you to talk about, Bob, is the location of this deck in relationship to the setbacks, to the neighbors, et cetera. Do you see that as being any impact, any harm? And then talk about what the deck, in your mind as an architect, does to the property aesthetically, how it brings enhancement to the property, if you think so.
Well, Mr. Meltzer's testimony that you read, he described this as a villa, and it really is nice. There's a little fountain there. There's a lot of open space for this part of town. So the edge of the building on the Monroe Avenue side, which would be up here, property line, face of building to the property line, 6'9". But you have about approximately another 25 feet until this structure. So there's a lot of open space here. On the other side, on the Longport side, Coolidge Avenue, if you will, there's 15 feet roughly from the face of the building to the property line, and there's approximately another 15 feet to the neighbor on the south side. So there is a lot of light, open air, and I think that's a benefit to the site. A lot of properties in this zone don't really enjoy that advantage.
How about from that roof we're talking about, which would like to be a deck, how about laterally? Can you see anybody's windows? Is it only or an imposition on anybody to the sides?
No, in fact, if you stand out here on Pacific Avenue, it's very difficult to see the dormer that's existing. That would be up here, of course. This indicates the deck post and stair that was begun when I
Bob, if
first
you're
visited the
standing
site.
on this deck and look toward Atlantic City or look toward Longport, do you see light and air, or do you see a building?
Well, on Pacific Avenue, I see the...
Not Pacific Avenue, if you look toward Longport.
You can get a little bit, you could see the ocean. I mean, it's
The ocean.
a little bit, the
Do
bulkhead.
you have the ability to look at anybody's window if you look to the side?
No, that would be quite a stretch.
And of course, you can't drop anything onto the sidewalk in front because of the roof below.
Right, yeah. The area that the Watts would utilize is back far from Pacific Avenue. In fact,
What are the dimensions of the deck?
I think I drew, yeah, it's about 46 feet to,
Property line.
well, from the property line, there's a series of 5 parking spaces, then you have the planter.
But the property
then you
line
have
to the
face of
deck is about
unit.
46 feet.
Yeah, 45, 11. Yeah.
And 30 feet to each side of the deck.
Yeah.
Approximately.
Well,
Approximately.
probably 16 to the property line.
To the next structure.
Yeah. Oh, to the next structure, yeah, it's 25.
So it's pretty
30.
well,
Yeah.
for a good distance all around if there's nothing there.
Yes.
Okay.
The area of concentration is right in here.
Right on the deck.
Yeah.
And the dimensions of that are what? We know it's 12 feet deep toward Pacific Avenue.
21 feet.
21 feet wide by
Yeah.
12 feet deep, okay. From a land use perspective, Mr. Reynolds, do you think that the deck advances any purposes of the act? You mentioned aesthetics.
Yeah, there's an aesthetic enhancement, and actually, the situation with, I think Mr. Meltzer described this as a villa, a shared, this entrance, he has parking on his side, 3 spaces, Watts and, the, tenant, or, excuse me, the owner of Unit A has parking as well here, and they enter through here, there's a fountain, a little bit of green space here, and, this opens up nicely, and it's not typical in this
Do you
area. It's
think
very
do you
unique.
think the improvements that the Watts have made, the exterior of the building, including this deck, aesthetically enhance the building,
Yes.
the neighborhood?
I don't really recall what it looked like before, but when I took some certain measurements and documented existing conditions, it was very easy to be impressed by the work and some of the choices that the Watts have made, selections of the materials.
Now, do you think, under Margate's definition of a rooftop deck, this is a rooftop deck or a third floor deck in light of the conditions on the third floor of the property?
Well, in light of the conditions, I've tried to replicate features of a deck, excuse me, a roof up here to make it more like a roof visually. And even from Pacific Avenue, it's not really, it's not right on top of you. You'd have to.
Would you consider this to be above the highest floor of the house?
Well,
It's straight, it's yes or no?
no, it's not above the dormer. Actually, the roof here, it comes down and catches.
It comes out of the third floor, it's the same
Yeah.
elevation,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Do you think there's any detriment to the zoning ordinance, the zone plan, by allowing this, should the board allow it?
I think there's some circumstances where it's a unique property because of the space all around the building. There's, it's
So
a
now we-
multifamily residential zone, but there is a lot of open space on both sides.
So you don't see any
that-
substantial detriment?
I don't see a substantial detriment. No, I do not see a detriment.
And in your inspection of the property and the surrounding area, did you see or notice other third floor or rooftop decks in that area?
Well, I believe there's a dormer on this property.
That's
So
yours?
on the Monroe Avenue.
With the similar configuration, the deck extending from that dormer?
Yeah.
Bob, that's all I have, thank you very much.
How big is that deck next door?
It's probably smaller than 12 by 21, it's,
Like
It
5
is
by
they're,
5?
small.
they're here. They're here, they can say.
It's smaller.
Thanks. Phyllis?
Chris,
Yes.
I live in a 2-story house with an attic, and I mean, I've never heard it being considered that that's my 3rd floor.
So, where I'm coming from, if you consider the variance for a rooftop deck, my impression of rooftop deck and the intention of rooftop deck language was using a roof as a deck.
Well. That's what he's using.
Right, but I don't consider my attic a habitable floor.
Rich, I understand that.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I'm not,
Okay.
I hear you.
All right, Ms. Watt, just give us your name and address, please.
Phyllis Watt, 9707B,
And
Pacific
please,
Avenue.
please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thanks.
You're very nervous.
I'm terrified. Okay. I just want to start off by apologizing to Mr. McLaren and the city of Margate if you thought we meant to disrespect you in any way. I was born and raised in the city of Margate, from Granville Avenue to Thai School, and a Margate coach cheerleader during my youth. I love the city of Margate and would have never done anything knowingly to disrespect it. As you can see by this photo, we have an entire room decorated of the Margate City Beach Patrol. I was never a member of the Beach Patrol, but spent many summer days on White Rock. I grew up on the corner of Douglas and Wellington, and have many childhood memories of collecting turtles for Minnie Creek. This home was meant to be our forever home that was to be passed down to our children and grandchildren. Owning a home with an ocean view is everyone's dream of paradise. We unfortunately lost a large portion of our paradise when the two-level hotel condos directly across from us were replaced with a new 4-story condo. So yes, adding the sun deck above the deck that was already there seemed like a good idea. Again, I would just like to apologize to the board if you thought we meant to disrespect you in any way. That was never our intention.
Thank you. Follow up on Maricia's comment. And Roger followed up by saying, well, you are using a roof as a deck, and admittedly so, but so is every third floor deck in the city uses a roof as a deck.
My opinion, this is a rooftop deck, and
It's
actually,
unavoidable.
you and I went over, created the definition in the ordinance that we use today to determine this as a rooftop deck.
Understanding, but in my understanding of that was, and I'm not gonna argue the point, if it's rooftop deck, it's rooftop deck. It doesn't, semantics, I don't care, my impression always was that you're using your uppermost roof, I guess I'll say, below a dormer, below any other projection of the house as a deck. That's all.
Right, but you're walking out your door onto the
If I'm
deck.
wrong, I've been wrong a million times before, and I'll take it. I have no problem with it. I'm here to try and get them an approval for something that I think makes sense. They screwed up. But if any property would benefit from that small deck, I think this does, despite the digressions from the typical way we do things that have occurred. I would ask that you not hold it against them, that they are here to ask for your forgiveness and for your approval of this project. And with that being said, I'm not going to tell the story any longer. I will say, Roger mentioned the side yard setback, and I can only say that if so be it, if there is one, there was nothing that was built that exacerbates that condition. There's no further extension of the side yard than the existing condition.
But the new deck is encroaching into that side yard.
The new deck is on that, probably. I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm a positive, but
It's not encroaching that much.
it's,
It's there.
whatever it was, it is, and that's where it's at. Thank you.
I just have one comment. As the zoning officer, you did not need to apologize to me. I hold no grudges. So, all good.
Okay, anyone else from the board have any questions or comments? John, do you have any questions?
No.
No? Okay. All right, anyone from the public want to speak? Come on up.
Just give us your name and address, and I'll get you sworn in.
Edward Zarotny, 9705 Pacific.
9705. Can you spell Zarotny?
Always. Z as in zebra, A-W-R-O-T-N-Y.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you're going to give will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So we have the property, the sister property across the courtyard, across from the fountain. You're welcome. It's my fountain, my baby, my grass. But I think we are the primary beneficiaries of everything that was done to this property. We've been there since 2016, and I wish there were pictures of the property before as it sits today. It was horrendous. It was dilapidated. It was not upkept. Sandy was a very nice elderly woman, but she did absolutely zero to the property. Our deck was the deck that was just referenced that's across the courtyard. We had a view of that deck every single day, and it was, they called it something else. We referred to it as the swamp. With every rain, it got bigger and bigger. It never went away. It was green, it was slimy, there were seagulls. It was a mess. And we said, Sandy, Sandy, Sandy. Sandy made efforts to fix it. It never got fixed. The property was sold. Along comes Sam and Phyllis. What they did to that property was magnificent. It changed the whole elevation facade of both properties. what it did for our property, by what they did to their property, completely changed it. You know, did it affect the value of our property? Of course it did. Beautification goes without saying. You heard Gary from downstairs. Again, our Gary is like their Beverly, same units. I came in a little earlier because I've never attended one of these to get the lay of the land. One thing I heard was, you know, a sense of preservation of Margate. It may be an older Margate or not over improving, whether it's parking, whether it's, you know, 6 bedrooms, 6 baths. I don't know if you folks are aware of these properties. They started off as the model units for 9600. So somebody had the wherewithal to take that box, relocate it as a model, and build around it. Now, I don't know that when it was constructed it's considered historical, but it is a kind of a cool thing for Margate that was left intact. They did not change the footprint. They didn't change the structure per se. I get the whole deck and, you know, made the deck above the deck. I don't think the deck above the deck encroaches upon their living space underneath, but it's preserved. Those 2 buildings have been preserved, nothing but beautified. The parking remains the same. I hear the word setback. The structure has not changed, side to side, front to back. But how it changed, not only, you know, the visual, but also our enjoyment. We just made a decision. We've been there since 2016, and we live in the city. My wife, 2 blocks, teacher in South Philly. I walk 4 blocks to work. We just made a decision to live here full time. I gotta tell you, that's like a big part. If Sandy was my next door neighbor, I don't think I'd be here year round, just because that was my experience. So I'm not gilding the lily. I'm not saying I moved and changed my zip code because of Sam and Phyllis, but it's a part. You know, it's a part of my world. It's a part of the existence. And like I said, I wish I had a picture of the structure before to the structure after. I'm not going to get into the technical and statute and roof deck. But what they did to that property is magnificent. The condos went across the street. We had a view. They had a view. They went up. I'll never say anything wrong with it because it was much better than what was there before. I used to sit there and just look at that thing. So while I understand the thought after, holy cow, now there's this massive wall in front of us, that sun deck, roof deck, top deck, whatever you want to call it, does provide an ocean view. You know, down here, I think that's a very big thing, the ocean view. My ocean view is non-existent. But that's okay. I'd still rather have the condos than the ocean view. So,
You also have, on your 3rd floor deck, you have a room there. Is it a bedroom or something?
bedroom, correct.
It's a bedroom with a deck, about 5 by 5.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't have that.
It's a little walkout.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's my living space.
They don't have
That was there before.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know the particulars of the statutes and
That changes the 2 decks.
understood.
Yeah.
Understood. I'm just here as to the benefits of Sam and Phyllis and what they did for us. Questions? Good? Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Anyone else from the public? Public portion is closed.
Mike, I have a question for Chris. The roof top where the railing is over top of the neighbor,
Yeah,
that's fiberglass?
yes. I'm guessing, that's fiberglass there? Yeah.
So it's a fiberglass, which means it's a deck, it's a fiberglass deck. You don't do a fiberglass roof.
You can do a fiberglass roof, Tom. We do a lot of, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, no, I'm saying it's inviting for anyone to say, oh, it's fiberglass, it's got a railing, walk out.
If it's your preference, I'll put a railing across it.
I'm not saying, I'm just asking a question so I know what's there.
It has that's what I thought it was. It has the appearance of it for sure.
Yeah, it does. Okay, thanks.
standing from the deck, how high is the peak of the roof?
Behind you,
Yeah, from that little
where the top of the dormer,
Yeah.
on me, probably got the same height.
No, I mean footage. You know, if you're standing on that third floor deck, how
Like,
high?
reach up and touch the top of the dormer?
I'm just curious where the peak of the roof is.
You haven't got a guy here who can do that, actually.
So you can see over the peak.
No, from here,
He needs from here,
no, it means
from here to here.
from here to here.
Did you say 7 feet, Chris?
7 feet ceiling height inside.
7-foot ceiling height, so I would think that the peak would be
It's at the
8
ridge.
foot.
No, well, the peak looks like it's about a foot or 2 feet
Well,
above
he's right there measuring it.
the railing, okay.
This line right here.
Yeah, I know. 7 to 8 feet, 8 feet. Because we measured the inside, it's 7 foot.
Right.
8 foot. 8 foot. Sorry.
Chris, we didn't talk about the staircase.
What about it?
Was it there, or?
No,
is it-
staircase was part of the project.
Right,
We built stairs.
right.
They
There
were
was
not
no
there.
stairs there before.
They were not there before.
Right. Everybody knew that, right? Okay.
So the only access to that deck is from this.
That's the only access to it, is the outside stair.
Anything else?
No, did you want to do anything with the report? Okay. You know, I know there was some back and forth before we get to a motion, whether it's a rooftop deck or a third floor deck that doesn't meet. We know what they're proposing. Roger drafted the ordinance. He's saying it's meets the definition of a rooftop deck. It's still a variance either way, so I think we should go with the rooftop deck. But, you know, there's a little bit of semantics, whether it's a rooftop deck or a third floor deck that doesn't meet our ordinance. It's a variance and we see what they're proposing, so. And then to Chris's point, when voting, the fact that something was built without permits, we're not a penal board. You have to look at it as if this came in as a new application, how would we view it? So I would just instruct the board in terms of that. So, and Chris, obviously, it's part of a condominium association. The woman who lives in Unit 1.
Mr. Watt testified to that, she has consent.
Okay. And you're subject to any master deed or whatever. All right, so the two variances, it's to allow this rooftop deck, and we heard plenty of testimony on that. And then there's also a side yard setback on the right side at about 5 feet for this deck, where 8 feet is required. And then we'll just,
I do have, before you finish that, I'm sorry.
yeah, sure.
Rob, your plans show some modifications to the railing of this third floor deck that you didn't describe. Or are you proposing a vent roof around this now?
Yeah, we are not.
No?
I was thinking about that. We
Can
are
you
not.
just come to the microphone?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, just the railing.
So the posts that are there will just be railed?
Connected with
Okay,
bollards, exactly.
okay. So any plans will be revised to show that?
Yes.
Okay. So noted, and I'll note that as a condition.
The railing will match the lower railing.
Okay, railing will match lower railing. And then the normal standard conditions, the applicant will comply with any, if approved, any condition, any representations made that they made or that were made on their behalf, subject to any outside approvals that might be required. You know, if approved, they'll need permits, obviously, and then just the typical standard conditions.
Make a motion. Any second?
I'll second.
Tom Collins.
Chris did a good job. If I was looking at this, which I am, as if it was a brand-new application, first things you know I always look for is the C1 and C2 criterion, which is what we're supposed to base everything on. It obviously doesn't meet a C1 because C1 would be hardship, and there is no real hardship here. As far as C2 and the aesthetics that everybody talked about, the aesthetics are all on the rest of the building anyway. We're talking about just a small area, the stairs and a deck. I don't really think it meets the C2. I think it is a third floor, it is a rooftop deck. If you had stairs and an egress inside, I might consider that it was a third floor and maybe it's not a rooftop deck. I don't like the concept of trying to put something like that in there on Pacific Avenue. It's again, it's locations and parts of Margate and things that we want to keep, but at the same time, you have to be smart about it. And that big front area, someday, somebody's going to have a big party out there, whether they like it or not, and it's just not safe. I just don't see that there's any justification to vote in favor of this, so I have to vote no.
Richard Patterson.
Well, just as a comment to the neighbor's comment, nothing we're voting on tonight takes away from all the great commendable improvements he made to the property. All we're voting on is whether he can use that rooftop that's there as a deck. It's everything that's there is going to stay there. But I have to agree with Tom. I mean, even if you consider it a third floor deck, third floor decks that we look at are more in line. 5 by 5 is really small, but certainly nothing like this. I think it's way in excess of what we want for third floor decks, even in the neighborhood that it is. I understand we have to look at these properties. But other than that, I agree with Tom, and I have to vote no.
Michael Richmond.
Yeah, so I drive around that neighborhood and I see a lot of decks. They're third floor decks. They're not rooftop decks, but most of them are a lot higher than what is being proposed here. In most of Margate, most of the areas of Margate, I would definitely not be in favor of this project. But in that location, surrounded by, commercial, well, not commercial, but you know what I'm saying, like multi-family units, I really do not have a problem with, like we said, every case stands on its own. I don't think we're setting a precedent. I think for that area of Margate, I really don't have a problem with it, so I'm going to vote yes.
Stephen Giesecke.
I'm really torn on this. I really am. I mean, we've all lost our views with all these houses that have gone up. I'm afraid that other people would see a deck. I don't know. It's a unique building. It really is a unique building, and it's not like anyone else can do that. I don't see that anyone else can do that. I'm going to approve it.
Michael Ruppio.
Yeah, it's a tough one, obviously, but I'm in agreement with the chairman, Mr. Richmond, and Mr. Giesecke on this. I think based on what Mr. Giesecke had said, the uniqueness of the area in Margate, I'm going to agree with the two of them and vote to approve this also.
Margaret Gubernalty.
This is a unique property, as it is a unique neighborhood. I think it is a dense neighborhood. It's a multi-unit neighborhood. It does not, as I see it, interfere with the neighbors or the neighborhood. I think it fits in with the neighborhood. I realize, rooftop deck, third floor deck, definitions, but I think each thing we vote on stands on its own, as we said. Based upon the neighborhood, I don't see see it as a detriment, and I vote in favor as well.
John Pitts?
So some of our guidelines for granting variances tell us that if the granting the variance benefits only the property owner, the variance should not be granted. So I think that's what we have in this case. Granting the variance would be of benefit only to the property owner. There's no benefit to the community, so I deny the application.
Jim Galantino?
The clock was off by the applicant. We weren't closed in 2023, we were closed in 2022, isn't that correct, Tom?
We were under renovations.
2022, but
In
2023 we were open.
2023, we were under renovations.
We're still in the front part.
Yes.
Because I'm wondering why it took so long to get that application in front of us for approval. But it seemed like it dragged on for almost a year and a half. After numerous times to be told to stop the job. And I hate to be able to find I hate when an applicant has to come back to the board and ask for forgiveness to right a wrong. And that just, I don't agree with, it was a great application, but I don't agree with the rooftop deck meeting the criteria. I'm going to say no.
Craig Palmisano?
Well, you have a 10-foot deck now with a roof over it, and your views are not guaranteed. I lost my views when they started building three-story houses over parking, and I'm 2 blocks from the bay. You're lucky to have a view for a while. On the Coolidge Avenue, there's a 1-story building there now, but that's not going to be there that long, and it's a benefit to have a view. And but also, I don't see any rooftop decks in Margate. I don't see any on the roof. I see third-floor decks, and I think it's a bad precedent if we say that you can put a deck all the way up on top of a roof, a couple feet from the ridge. And I don't think a permit would be issued for that by our department to build something like that. So I'm in agreement with Tom and a couple of the other board members, and I have to vote no on this for a rooftop deck.
The application is denied with 4 in favor and 5 opposed.
We're talking about the parking lot? Right? We're talking about the parking lot? Yes.
No. Oh, yeah.
All the way
All right, we're still on the record.
And they're worried about the weight?
We're still on the record, guys.
Okay,
We're on the record.
you ready?
Got one more thing to discuss.
Yep.
All right, so as part of any master plan, the capital expenditures typically is heard by the planning board also. And as you've heard in the recent news, the city's considering and has entered into a contract to purchase the old Sunny or Taylor's gas station to utilize it as a potential parking lot for municipal parking. And as you're aware, at the last master plan discussions and as a result of some of the zoning changes in our ordinance, there was no provision, there was no incentive to allow commercial parking in the commercial zone, CBD to be in particular. So we changed it. We said commercial parking lots are a permitted use in that zone. So, and as you're aware, we've had several mixed-use, commercial use applications in front of the board over the years where, you know, everyone basically required a parking variance. And I've always been on the rule of thought that, you know, for a commercial business down here, seasonal, for them to purchase $2 million to have half the parking that they need is quite a burden on a commercial development. So I've always been a proponent that the municipality should invest in the asset of purchasing property to use as commercial parking that benefits everyone. If a 2 cents plane had to buy a parking lot, that only benefits them. And it would be a shame to see a parking lot underutilized when the city can use the parking lot and everyone benefits. It'll help ease the burden in the commercial zones, commercial districts, to provide parking. And so again, my opinion is it's a good plan. It was promoted during the master plan session, and also we have the master plan reevaluation coming up pretty soon. But I just wanted the planning board to be aware of this capital expenditure as we were required by municipal land use law to have a discussion and present it to you. So if there's any questions or comments, yes.
I've been on the board since 2007. And without exception, every single commercial property we've talked to, we have had innumerable complaints. There's not enough parking, there's not enough parking, there's not enough parking. And not until the city decided to purchase this is the first time I've ever heard this say, we don't need parking, it's a waste of money. This is crazy. I'm talking almost 20 years of we don't have enough parking. Every single, you ask any business, we can't, if we enforced the commercial parking area, we would have no businesses in town. There's no room for the parking. This is a well-located lot. It's right in the middle of the business district. And I've heard, again, just people asking me on the street, is the city responsible for remediation for them? For
No,
the gas station?
The agreement from the current owner is ExxonMobil is fully responsible for any.
So the city will have no responsibility for remediation?
Correct, other than seeing it through.
Other than, right, I meant monetary.
Right.
And are there grants available for the parking lot or for?
We have a grant application in now that would cover part of that nut.
And how about, I heard there's grants available for charging stations?
Actually, the city received a grant about 4 or 5 years ago for EV stations. We, believe it or not, we didn't have a place to put them. So we had to decline that grant. This is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of that grant again and provide at least 2 or 3 spaces for EV charging stations open, available to the public.
And again, this is, the city's purchasing an asset here. It's not like we're spending $2 million and it's thrown away. I mean, for whatever reason, the parking lot fails, they could always sell it, but the parking lot's not gonna fail.
But the other way to look at this is we are reducing the likelihood of 4 new 5, 6-bedroom homes coming to Margate on Ventnor Avenue.
Exactly.
That we really don't need.
That would increase the density, increase the parking problem.
The load on the infrastructure, as you're aware, that up in Sunny Sunoco, that was approved for a 4-unit subdivision. They never filed the paperwork, but that's just a matter of time before the use variance carries with the property, so they can still use residential, but, you know,
And I
that's
also
another
heard,
opportunity.
again, I don't know the answer to this. But again, people have come up and said it's gonna cost every property owner $500 on their tax bill. I know that's ridiculous. I don't know what the actual number is, but if it's 10% of that, I would be surprised. I just hear exaggerated stories.
Well, you know, sometimes when people don't want something to be approved or purchased, you know, you hear some fear mongering. It's my understanding that, you know, the testimony provided by the governing body was the purchase of this parking lot will be zero impact to the budget, to the taxpayer.
Would there be Park Mobile on it like there is along the bulkheads?
Yes,
So there would be revenue created too?
revenue would be created. that'll help pay back the purchase of this asset.
All right, that's my comments.
30 spaces?
Yeah, I think, that it's, yeah, the same thing. I mean, I've been on the board almost as long.
Longer.
Yeah, and it's like, every time we have something come up, is it, what about the park? What about the parking? Even in the winter, I'll try, I can't find parking sometimes in that area, So, Craig. Wasn't
Jim.
Anyway.
Tom.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I actually used the parking lot, right on Washington Avenue today with the, whatever you call it, park mobile.
It's not hard to use.
No. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yes, so,
There will be fees to park there, I mean, we'll be making money parking there.
Right.
Well, you need the fees to have the turnover. You don't want people parking there for a week.
They're gonna make money on it, though.
Right.
They're gonna make money on it.
And as an example, in Ocean City, they started purchasing land near the boardwalk back in the 1980s to preserve and to promote the boardwalk, because none of the boardwalk shops had parking. And they have net income that those lots have paid for themselves. It's going to be a lengthy payback period, but maybe 20, 30 years. Unfortunately, we're tied to today's net worth of what it costs to buy property, but again, I'd rather see parking there on a former gas station covered with asphalt than 4 5-bedroom homes. I mean, it's just a better fit. And the benefit is everyone.
I know it's gonna be a parking lot, there's not much to look at by way of plans, but are there plans available?
There are schematic plans that we use to apply for a grant, and it shows landscape buffer, shows some lighting. Also, we'll be gaining parking on Ventnor Avenue by closing up those curb cuts. So, you're gonna have 30 spaces on the lot, and you're probably gaining 4 to 5 at least on the street. And even on the side streets, you only need a 24-foot wide.
I mean, you have continuous curb cuts all around the place.
Right.
The entrances will be on the side streets?
Yes.
One other
So
point.
low traffic.
Probably 4 or 5, 6 years ago, the city had a chance to buy Johnny's parking lot for $500,000, and they thought it was too much money. And now we have 16 bedrooms there.
Right.
And it would have been a perfect spot for a parking lot at this end of town. And to let something go again, I think is very short-sighted.
Good point.
Thank you. And I'm just used to yelling, Craig, so I didn't, no offense.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody remembers that.
Which?
The lot here on Washington Avenue behind the shops across the way here, I'm actually parking there tonight.
Yes.
But half of that lot is for the real estate office. I understand they have a lease on that.
Yes.
Do you think that'll be renegotiated when it expires?
No.
No.
2029.
Why not?
That's her lease.
That was part of the, that was part of the deal when we built the second floor on the building in 2000, and they made us get that parking in order to build the second floor.
It will be negotiated when the lease is up. When is the lease up?
I won't be
50
there.
more
I
years?
won't be there.
Or 60 more years? It's pretty-
Well, that's a topic for another night.
Palm will be here. That's it.
I won't tow you.
I'm sorry?
I won't tow you if you park.
She'll give you the finger instead.
You're on the record.
Yeah. So, any other comments? I believe,
We take a vote, or just?
let's just think, we'll just take a, is anyone opposed to purchasing the parking lot?
Great idea.
I agree. My goal is to just craft a resolution in support of the governing body and the capital expenditure to purchase the parking lot, support our governing body.
I'll put something together short saying the
Does
10
anybody
people
know
here
the actual,
unanimous.
like, cleanup process of that?
Probably take a lot of sweat out. Dig it out.
It-
To dig dig it out toward Plymouth.
Has it leaked into Ventnor Avenue? Does anybody know that?
I don't know if there's any monitoring wells there now, but I'm sure there will be installation of the monitoring wells, and they usually place them at the edge of the plume, they call it, to see where it travels, if there's anything in there. It's my understanding that it's been deemed clean.
We'll find out.
From, like, back in the day?
Not recently, when
More
they took.
recent.
took
When the
tank-
tanks were removed.
Yeah, tanks were removed. They evacuated most of the soil.
Exxon said it was clean.
Of course they would. No, we have a licensed site remediation specialist reviewing the application now for the cleanup to make sure, and they're gonna, and the city has the right to withdraw from the purchase if it's still, you know, we can't wait for 5 years, 10 years to have it cleaned up. But in my opinion, that's still the best purchase option. Best use of this property as a parking lot for the city. So with that being said, I have nothing further to add.
So, Roger, there's nothing that could stop it now from going, or?
We'll adopt the resolution next month. We'll vote on that.
Yourself for what?
It'll be a one-pager. Maybe two.
It's in the works now. I mean, it's.
We have an agreement of sale, yes. We have allocated capital expenditures, the down payment. It's in our capital bond, which was passed. So it's just a matter of, and if we get a grant, that'll help pay for some of the expenditures that we put in. But we anticipate getting revenue also.
I make a motion.
Hold on. I have, Roger, you mentioned something earlier, you said about the crepe myrtles as the street trees. Are they not no longer?
They're allowed, but, you know, we're trying not to promote them. They just show up there. And my argument is, we've been getting a lot of trip and falls over the larger trees. Until we really get a handle on where the trees go and look at maybe just requiring one tree for property. But we haven't had any reports of a trip and fall of great myrtle.
Excuse myself.
From the green team meeting, where they were discussing that, and they say, we're gonna have purple trees all over the place if it doesn't get contained. And, it's a sloppy tree and high maintenance tree.
Well,
And do we want
A lot of people seem to like them.
I know they do, but
They're hardy.
Well, they also attract hummingbirds. You're into that. I am.
it's a native, it's not really, I mean, it's a tree.
Well, I got a
giant.
hummingbird around my house, and it didn't start coming until the crepe myrtle
From the
bloomed.
crepe myrtles?
Yeah.
They take nectar.
Yeah, well, so, I like crepe myrtles, I like hummingbirds.
So-
Is that an issue?
Was there a
Right.
motion?
Make a motion.
I made a motion.
Okay.
John, you had something?
Second.
All in
All in
favor?
favor? Aye.
All right.